This is something that we talked about online, and we got our rapid fire questions for Tyler Thigpen. So, Tyler, we got a lot of Chief fans comment online to ask you some questions. So, Tyler, you ready to hear from the Chiefs Kingdom?
Absolutely. Nothing like it.
All right. Okay. So our first tweet was from @Dakota Morgan. Tyler, what was your conversation like with Chan Gailey, if you had one, when they decided to place Heward and Crowell on IR and run an offense more suited to your strengths?
I think the biggest thing for that, we came out obviously against the Raiders and pretty much, that week, obviously week 2, when our offense was kind of just stagnant. And the conversation with Chan was kind of one of those things to where, hey, and it was pretty much an offensive staff. It's like, hey, we've got a guy in Tyler Thigpen that, he ran the shotgun. He's a running gun kind of guy. We're going to have to change something up. So we pretty much adjusted on the fly. I remember week 3 going to Atlanta, essentially. Didn't have a great game by any means, but it was kind of one of those things to where we moved the ball. And I think the next week we came back against somebody that actually put Damon. Damon started the next week. And then Brody came back against Tennessee Titans. I can't remember what that might be week 5 or 6. And then both of them ended up going. Brody actually tore his ACL that game, and Damon tore a ligament in his thumb. But then after the Tennessee game is when we essentially started rolling. And at that point, all the media was pretty much just saying, hey, you can't run shotgun all the time. You can't do this. And look what they're doing now, So
that's crazy.
We ran the pistol. It was kind of one of those things to where Chan came about that because Larry wasn't a guy that essentially was, the running back that essentially sitting beside you and gun. Normally, he wasn't a sideways runner. Larry was kind of a downhill guy. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the reasons we put the pistol in at the time as well. But that credit to Chan for being able to adjust and all his coaches being able to adjust at the time. And at the end of the day, the players, we knew we were still calling the same stuff. It's essentially, one of those things where we're just pretty much in gun the entire time.
Did you run pistol in college?
No, I did not run pistol. We ran shotgun.
Really? So he just put it in. Okay.
Yeah, put that in, and that was strictly for Larry, just because he knew Larry was he was a downhill bruiser, and he knew his, running shotgun with, trying to do his own read with Larry.
Right.
Larry wasn't the guy. Now, when Jamal was in the game, we would easily, go to his own reads and stuff like that.
Okay. That's a good adjustment, man. That's smart. That's really smart.
Yeah, that was, like I said, I give Chan a lot of credit for being able to adjust like that. Pretty much we went from scoring, I think, 14 points a game to I think we averaged like 24 points a game.
Oh, really?
We put up some good numbers. And Tony will tell you, Tony had another 1,000-yard year that year, and Dwayne Bowe had a 1,000-yard year in 2008. And, it was just a lot of fun. And Tony even made the comment, he said, hey, if I'm back here next year, I want, Thig to be my quarterback. And that said a lot. And obviously they traded Atlanta and brought a whole new regime. I wish they'd have kept Herman for another year, but, when you only win 2 games, that's kind of tough.
Yeah.
And we had those, of my 11 starts, we had 1 win against the Raiders. And that my only win was actually against the Raiders in Oakland. But, it's one of those things to where we had, I think, 7 fourth-quarter leads that we lost because we had the 30 – our defense couldn't stop. The 32nd worst defense in the league was Detroit Lions, who went 0-16, and the 31st worst was Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, you kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That was tough. But, hey, at the end of the day, we as an offense, we made it fun and came out there every week and tried to give it our best. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because, people, when they think of, like, the pistol offense coming into the NFL, everyone thinks of Kaepernick. I remember when I was in college, people was like, oh, yeah, man, this like, college-style offense, and, it's never been run in the NFL before. I was like, actually, no. The pistol was run with Tyler Thigpen in 2008 with Kansas City. And
that's it, exactly. And they ran, obviously they ran the more read option stuff, but they didn't have guys like, nothing against Larry. Larry was a great running back, but Larry wasn't a read option kind of guy. You had guys, you watch those offenses that Kaepernick run or, kind of like Lamar Jackson, those guys that have, in the pistol formation, essentially where they're doing read options and stuff like that. Those guys are more scat back kind of guys.
You better not be read option at 6'2", 6'3", 235. You better not. You better come down here. Yeah.
Hey, I wasn't sliding. I was blowing the shoulder,
Yeah.
Those were fun offenses. That was okay. All right. So from our next question is from @JTheFan1. Were you more nervous throwing a TD pass or trying to catch a touchdown pass?
Definitely trying to catch one. It's funny that week against Tampa Bay, we put that in there. I've been begging my college coach Bennett to run a halfback pass, my entire college career, never got called. And then obviously against Tampa Bay, we had been running a lot of Wildcat with Jamal Charles. And that essentially I was splitting out, and we put it in that week. And we ran it on Wednesday, which is obviously your, first install. Of course, guess what I did? I dropped the damn ball. So I had to go back to coach and be like, hey, you got to call it. And then obviously on Friday we ran it again. I called it, and then we called it in the game because what it was is coach was saying, hey, because Ronde Barber was the one covering, and pretty much it was saying like we ran, I think, Wildcat 2 plays and some other series or whatever during that game, and my job was to say, hey, is he shooting towards to the play or whatever? And I was like, hey, coach, he's shooting. So it wasn't, third or fourth series or whatever. They ended up dialing it up, and he bit. And the next thing you know, the white boy, Tyler Thigpen, running down the field, touchdown pass. But, at the end of the day, was I nervous? Yeah, but I knew at that day I was like, hey, I can't drop this, man.
Yeah.
So the only thing I was nervous about is obviously they were giving out fines like crazy for TD celebration. I went to jump in the stands. And it as I go to jump, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna get fined. So I push back off or whatever. So kind of pump fake some guys over there on the Kansas City Chief leap.
Oh shoot! Oh, that's beautiful.
That was Mark Bradley who threw the touchdown, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mark Bradley. And it was funny because Rondé came up to me after the game. He's like, man, you didn't even see it. He goes, I thought they fumbled the exchange, and he goes, that's why I bit up. And he goes, next thing you know, I noticed when Jamal flipped it to Mark, they kind of bobbled it, and Mark ended up getting it and obviously throwing a dime or whatever. But Rondé said he was looking in the back, saw that, and he said he thought he saw a fumble about to happen, and next thing you know, I was just gone. So I think I took him one anyways, but that's
of course. That's what I was gonna say, man. You cooked him. That's what happened. Yeah, you got cooked on this play. Don't give me that.
I think he said he's like, I ain't never got burned by a whiteboard before.
Silly.
Yeah, have an excuse for it.
Exactly.
All right, so we got our guy, one of our big time followers, @Klein Optimus. He gave us 3 questions for you, so your rapid fire one. So first question: what is your favorite Kansas City barbecue spot?
I think it's Joe's KC is the one that's in the gas station. I looked that up earlier. I always forget that for some reason, but that was definitely one of the favorite spots for the guys. We used to go there. We didn't go a lot during the season, but during the off season, after you get done with OTAs, we sometimes go over there and chill there, and that was always good barbecue for me.
Now, are you being in Kansas City for a little bit? Are you a bigger fan of Kansas City barbecue more so than Carolina barbecue?
It's one of those things to where I can eat pretty much anything as far as that. Obviously there's probably some other places in Kansas City that I didn't necessarily get to taste and whatnot. But I tell you, there was one time I went with Damon Ewart. His neighbor was real big, like doing the cook-offs or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we cook-off. I can't remember where it was. Stuff we tried down there was unfreaking believable. Those guys are out there, tailgating like it's a Chiefs game for cooking barbecue. And I don't know if y'all have ever been to a cook-off. Everybody comes out. Things.
I always wanted to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've never been to a barbecue cook-off, just chili cook-offs. They're big on that around here in the DMV. I'm not a big chili fan either, so
yeah, I'll eat some chili in the wintertime. That's about it. But you better not get too far away from
Yeah, a lot of chili cook-offs are actually in the spring and the summertime in DC area. I have no idea why. It's way too hot for that.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say it's still cold, I guess, but maybe not.
Yeah. Okay, so next question from our guy, Klein Optimus, was loudest Arrowhead Stadium moment for you.
Loudest Arrowhead Stadium moment. I remember it was my rookie year. I just gotten picked up, obviously, by Kansas City. Our first game was against Chicago, and then I think we go to Houston, lost. We were 0-2. this is obviously the year before they had just gone to the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah, we did.
Was that Trent's last year?
No. What? Oh, yeah, 06. Because he went to Miami.
Yeah, he went to Miami after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was Trent's last year. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he had just gone to the playoffs. And we come back home, even though we were 0-2. I mean, I remember and this was my first game in Arrowhead, as at home, obviously. And I remember it was against Minnesota Vikings, who was my former, they had drafted me, obviously. And I remember standing on the sideline, and obviously, the game was back and forth essentially. But the biggest thing that I remember is going in the locker room at halftime, and my ears were just ringing. Yeah, it was because it was so loud. And then just looking back, and now, years after I was done, I remember them going back and forth with Seattle, who was another experience my rookie year when I was, went there or whatever in preseason, and just experienced how loud that was. But it was funny how Kansas City and Seattle were going back and forth for the Guinness World Book of Records for the loudest stadium. And I think City still hold it.
I think Kansas City still holds it. I believe so. I think they still hold
it. I think they do. Yeah. Yeah.
That Monday night game against the Patriots, where they beat Tom Brady and then Garoppolo came in that game. That was 2016, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So it definitely been after I was done playing. But the biggest thing I would say is, I can't even imagine what it's like now. I mean, after what they've done in the past, and just, I can't even fathom how loud it is there right now. I need to get back for a game. We've been talking about doing that. I keep in touch with old Alan Wright.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah.
So I hit him up on Facebook here and there just to kind of keep up with him. So I always love seeing his mugshot on the sideline. But just give him a text or something.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last question from Client Optimist was, how far will Coastal Carolina go this season?
I tell you what, they're riding high right now. They're 5-0, but they've got a stretch coming up that, between, I think, Marshall, JMU, at UVA, and also App State. I mean, anytime you play App State, luckily we've got them at home, but they've had our number for, quite some time. But to be able to, if they can win, I'd love to see them go undefeated. Obviously, I'm pulling for them, but that's a tough stretch because they've had some close games early on in the season that they should have, essentially blown those teams out. And I think they've got some guys beat up a little bit, but at the end of the day, as long as they keep winning, I'm hoping that if they stay undefeated, they'll get on, get obviously back in that top 25 here soon. So hopefully, I don't think they'll make it all the way to the top 4 by any means, but hopefully they can get into continue to make headway in the sense that where they continue to everybody's recognizing them now when they're on the big stage and winning these games that they are.
Yeah. And it's good too for Coastal Carolina. I mean, was it every 2 of the Fridays or 2 of the Thursdays over the last few weeks? I've seen them on ESPNU or ESPN. I mean, they're getting a lot of primetime games on ESPN coverage now, so it's awesome.
Yeah, they are, exactly. And then obviously ESPN Plus. I mean, that's huge. I don't get back to many games, but to be able to watch them every Saturday is really, nice to be able to do that. So, and like I said, as long as they keep winning, at the end of the day. Not that people didn't know about Coastal back in the day, but now when you mention Coastal Carolina, I mean, everybody right away is like, oh yeah, they're doing really well. So it's nice to have some recognition for those guys down there because it's helping recruiting wise. I mean, it's tough. Yeah. The NIL is just, like I said, winning football games is not enough. Now it's what can you offer a player money wise, and they're trying to do some stuff to raise money to be able to give to those players and stuff like that because we don't have the alumni that your Alabama or your Clemson or your A&E, those guys that are just unlimited checkbooks essentially.
Yeah.
It makes it tough to compete on that level. But, as long as you're winning, I mean, that does help essentially. Hey, we're going to win 10 games this year or every year. So you want to come here and win a conference championship, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Winning is get you nice things, get you a lot of nice things. And so, absolutely. Yeah. Man, get back down there for a couple games, man. I'll start going down to Eastern for a couple of games. It's a good time. When I go and see my boys and stuff,
I went back for the reunion, obviously the 20-year reunion.
Okay.
Cool with guys I hadn't seen in a while, just to see kind of what they've done to essentially the indoor facility and just seeing what those guys now have. I mean, you try to tell some of those guys that my freshman year, not to keep you guys, but my freshman year, when we went down there, we practiced for an entire year before we even played. 2002, we practiced for an entire year before a season of 2003. Because that's when they were building the program. So when I got on campus,
okay,
starting program. When I got on campus, we didn't even have a stadium built. They started building a stadium right when we got. So we had to practice for an entire year. I remember we getting trucks and drive to practice on driving ranges. Coaches, while we were strict, had their own personal lawnmowers out there cutting the grass so we could practice. It was tough. We shared a locker room with the soccer team at Coastal. I remember I had 3 guys. You remember the old lockers back in high school where they had like the long, slender ones?
Yeah.
I mean, you barely fit. You had to shove your shoulder pads. I mean, the first year we only had 13 scholarship guys, and I was fortunate. I was one of them. And I remember just sitting there every day. I would put my pads on. I'd look at the guy next to me. I'm like, what am I doing here? And then I could tell myself I got a free education.
Yeah.
And then look at exactly what it's come to. And you sharing one of those lockers with 3 other guys. I mean, you had 120 football players that, essentially 107 walk-ons, and we were out there on driving ranges. Conway Rec was a rec department field. Crazy looking back.
Wow.
A long way, that's for sure. Now they got money for an indoor facility. They're about to start constructing next year. So they're doing well for themselves down there. Good.
Well, they got to pay homage to the man, the myth of legend. When you come in, he's arrived. He's here. Kids look at you like, I see your face on. That's you in there, the man. Yeah, it's me. I see you, baby. I see you.
Good. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. One more question from Twitter, and that's it. How did it feel to watch Jamal Charles fly when you played with him?
Like I touched on earlier, he didn't get to play as much as essentially what I felt like he should have, because obviously they were paying Larry, a couple or $10, $12 million or whatever it was at the time, because I think the biggest contract. So they had to obviously keep him happy. But I think Chan and them knew exactly what happened. So it was one of those things to where they could play. Larry was pretty much your first and second down guy, and then you brought Jamal in on third down. So you're hitting him with and things like that. But then obviously just to once I was going to Miami the next year, just to watch him flourish when he was there with Matt Castle, obviously, and Todd Haley, to watch what he did. And obviously against the Raiders, I think he set the rushing record or whatever against the Raiders, like 300 and something yards, I believe, back in 2008 or 2009.
2009, he had it was against the Broncos last game of the season. He had 30-something yards rushing.
Okay. But I was certain just seeing him pop some runs off against the Raiders as well. But, I knew what he had in him. He's one of those guys. He was electric. Anytime he touched the ball, he was one of those guys that, hey, he could take it the distance. So the little bit we did get to obviously watch him play, or me watch him play in 08, but to see what he did after that is truly what I knew they had in him. So he was definitely fun to watch and fun to watch fly for sure, because he could definitely fly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that speed, that track speed, man. The Joker, man, was
and to watch guys that could run and to have that speed to where they can look up at the jumbotron to know if somebody's chasing them.
Yeah,
that's stupid speed. I broke off some runs in 08. I knew I was going to get caught at some point. It's reason to look up there. It's like hold the ball tight. But for those guys to, like Devin Hester and Jamal Charles, those guys just to be able to, that's pretty special. I think he had a kickoff return in 08, I believe. That was just one of those things to where it's just unreal to watch that guy. It almost like he was floating when he was running. It really did.
Yeah.
And the Reebok shoes they had him wearing, it was probably slowing him down.
Yeah. Heavy as hell.
You know how heavy them damn Reeboks were.
Yeah, right. The cinder blocks on your feet. What the hell is?
He was a Reebok guy. I remember that, JD.
Yeah. Look, I had to get out of that contract. They gave me a better contract than Nike. So, they You know what? They had more money and they had better gear at the time. Some of the gear was all right. They had I had Jay-Z and all those guys I think was collaborating. So I was like, okay, Reebok, I see. Doing those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get podcasts.